Hi, and welcome to the newest episode of Monetize Your Message, where we're talking about how to take that message that you all have in your business and make money from it. And this is the first time in a while that it's just been myself and Marie chatting. So for those of you joining us for the first time, we are Jesse and Marie. We are North Star Messaging and Strategy, and messaging is kind of our game, and talking about how to monetize it in a really substantial way that allows you to build over time in a sustainable way.
Exactly. So thanks for joining us. And what we have been doing up until now for, a few months is interviewing other entrepreneurs and finding out how they monetize their message in their business. And that's immensely valuable, I think, to be able to learn from others, to be able to look at different business models, and to be able to take, what makes sense for them and see what applies to your business, because I think we can all learn from each other. But we wanted to take today and just be the two of us and chat about something that's really going on right now. It feels really relevant to particularly online entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and this is something we've seen and we've heard a lot of other people talking about a lot lately. It's been a constant conversation among our audience members and in the areas that we hang out. And we sort of just wanted to talk about our own feelings around it, which we're still kind of figuring out on our own. But we think it's an important conversation to have. And that is, when things in business get too automated, how do you maintain a level of intimacy and relationship building with your audience? And specifically, we're looking at automation in a few different ways. So when you automate your emails, when you have email funnels and you pre-write all your campaigns and things like that, how does that impact the relationships that you're forging with your audience? And when you are doing things like going into Facebook groups and really posting a lot of value, but sometimes it's a lot of pre-written value, and it almost starts to feel like a sounding board where you're just plastering information and everyone else is plastering information, and it loses some of that initial community feel that is why a lot of people got into Facebook groups to begin with. So I think there are a lot of different areas where we can talk about this, but those are two areas in particular that we've been seeing it happen.
Exactly. So, when we first started our Facebook group, which was over a year ago, um, that was the thing, right? That was the way that you developed an audience, in addition to, an opt-in and all of that kind of good stuff. And we were new to all of this because our business up until then had been built around, sending out proposals for projects and word of mouth, and just relying on our business connections that we created through our 9-to-5s and turning those into like contract work. And all of a sudden now we were shifting our whole business model. We were shifting who we served, what we did, and we found ourselves in this community of online entrepreneurs. And it seemed like what everyone was doing was starting a Facebook group. So we started a Facebook group. And a lot of people in the last few months, even really big names, have been shutting down their Facebook groups. A lot of people have been talking about how, Facebook groups aren't really working anymore. They're working the same way anymore. I think it's true that they're not working the same way anymore. We ourselves have seen dips and ebbs and flows in the engagement in our group. And so wanted to kind of talk about like what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us, and what we plan to do going forward on the social media audience building side of things. And then of course too, we want to dip into emails and ways that we found that even with, an automated pre-written sequence, it doesn't have to be dead. It doesn't have to be like this thing that doesn't work anymore because we prize authenticity over all else. Like you can have automation and authenticity, but I think it takes a lot of thought and a lot of like intentionality to make that happen.
Yeah, and there's such a it's almost a pull to automate more stuff and always have it automated. And obviously we want to make our lives easier, right? We are busy. We have a lot going on. Sometimes, you're split between client work and audience building and visibility, and you have podcast interviews and you have a program you're launching. And there are so many things going on that when you can find something to simplify, it's like, yes, please. And a lot of times that's through automation. Yeah, exactly. Like, how cool is it that we can have someone opt into our email list and know that for the first 6 weeks, they are getting content from us, but we don't have to remember to write them that content. It's already in the funnel. It's already set up so that they are getting value from us. And that's awesome. And has been such a relief for us as entrepreneurs who are trying to do all the things all the time. And the same with our Facebook group. When we initially started it, it was a huge audience builder for us. It is where we formed our first audience, even before our email list. And it was a community that we really enjoyed spending time in. But then as we got busier and busier, and as groups got noisier and noisier, and not necessarily with the right kind of noise, it started to hit that ebb and flow that Marie was talking about. And I think, I think that's where a lot of people are. And I think that's why this conversation around like, our Facebook group's dead. Is email automation dead? Or is the funnel dead? Or is it only for a very specific type of business that is kind of cold and robotic and not about relationship building? And I don't think that's true. I think there is a way to automate and infuse authentic relationship building into Facebook groups, into emails, into your entire business. But it really is an important conversation to have, because there are a lot of groups closing. There are a lot of people who are saying, this is not getting us the ROI we want. This is not the way we see our business going. So we're shutting the doors. And that was a real conversation Marie and I had. Like, do we shut the doors on our Facebook group? Is it not serving us in the way we want it to be? And is it not serving our audience in the way we want it to serve them?
So, we've reserved the right to change our minds, but at this point, we've decided to hold it open. And we had a conversation about this where we were like, okay, what's it going to take to hold a group open in a way that we feel good about? Mm-hmm. And so we started talking about how, we still have value posts, we still have daily theme posts, all of that kind of stuff. And it's not bad, and it gives structure, and it's nice because it does kind of take that pressure off of like every single day. But we sort of made this commitment, like, let's get back to it. Let's spend some time in there, because it has been a revenue generator for us. It has been an audience builder for us. But beyond that, it's been a relationship builder for us. And it helps us with our expertise, showing up as leaders. And so I think where we would fail as leaders is if we just kept doing the same thing that wasn't working. Mm-hmm. So like, let's go back to what is working, or look at new things that are working. So, taking the time just to have like spontaneous posts, to like snap a picture of what we're doing and start a conversation, or to like ask the question, like, here's something really big that's on my mind. What do you guys think about it? And just starting a conversation, instead of just having everything be these sort of pre-formatted, beautiful images in Canva with like these long-winded or short-winded, whatever, like diatribes on whatever. Like, that's been a lot of our strategy, and it worked in the past, but like, it's so oversaturated now that like, just the more that we're ourselves, so the more we can hop on Facebook Live, the more that we can host challenges and show up for people. I don't think we need to do that all the time, because it's exhausting to us and it's exhausting to our poor audience. We're like, learn more, do more. Like, that's not necessarily the strategy, but like continuing to show up in that way. And like, that's a strength for us. And so we want to like capitalize on that and like continue doing that. So I guess that's, the question for you guys too, is like, what's worked for you in terms of building audience, and like what super hasn't worked for you, and just peeling that apart a little bit. And also just like, what's fun for you and what isn't fun for you. Like, if the Facebook group isn't working for you and you hate it, like, maybe shut it down. Maybe that is an awesome answer for you.
Yeah. And I think also what you said about that vulnerability is huge, and being open to having those discussions about what's on your mind. I mean, when we started talking about this, how we feel about our Facebook group, first thing Marie and I did was hop on the phone to chat through it and talk through it. But we do that for everything because we're business partners. But the next step that is so often forgotten, whether you have a business partner or not, is we asked our Facebook group. Like we said, hey, this has been on our minds. Do you feel like the vibe here is what you want it to be? Do you feel like the vibe in Facebook groups in general is what you want it to be? And what do you want it to be? What is your vision for that? And it's so easy to sort of keep those uncertainties and thoughts close to your chest because, I have to show up as the expert. I have to always know what's going on, and I have to be like this perfect version of myself. But at the end of the day, that's not what forms relationships. Being some perfect version of yourself is being a fake version of yourself. You are perfect with your imperfections and with your self-doubt. What am I doing? Is this really a right fit for me moments? Because that's what helps us grow, addressing them and not just kind of mulling them over in your own mind, but bringing them to the group and making it so they're kind of invested in it too. Our group members are invested in the group. They've taken time and energy to be there, to be present, to be participative. And if they've fallen off the wagon on that, we want to know why. What was it that made them stop participating? And it could have been something in their life and business, or it could have been that the group stopped being a good fit, or it could have been that the atmosphere of the group changed to a point where it didn't really feel the way it felt when they first joined. And those are things we want to know, because when we know them, then we can address them.
Right. And I think for us, for me at least, it was amazing the response we got to that question. I think you posted, Jesse, and it was people were responding who we didn't know were paying any attention to us in our group. People responded with more positivity than I thought we warranted. To be honest, we were feeling worse about our group than they were. A lot of people in our group, we found out through that, assuming they were being honest with us, which I hope they were, and I think they would be. The group was still supporting them in ways that it felt valuable enough to at least stick around and pay attention. And now even just in the last few weeks, we've been showing up in a much more major way. And it's amazing too, how much better it feels just to me internally. I feel good about our Facebook group again. And I think it's just because I'm putting effort in and I'm showing up there, and yeah, we're having new coffee chats come out of it. We're having new discovery calls come out of it, and getting more ideas and being reminded of relationships that we kind of let flounder a little bit, and be oh yeah, that person is really awesome. And I love being connected with them. So it's been really good just for us, I think, if nothing else.
Yeah. So I think there are a few takeaways here. I think the first is that it's okay to embrace the ebbs and flows. And I think these takeaways go for Facebook groups, absolutely, but really for anywhere where you're kind of automating things a little bit in your business. It's okay if there are ebbs and flows in participation. That is how business works. And it's okay to change things. And I think the other piece to that is it's okay to be vulnerable and ask questions. And the last piece is not to underestimate the lurkers, the people who are not necessarily speaking up, the people who are not necessarily participating all the time, responding to your emails, responding to your posts, because that doesn't mean they're not reading or paying attention.
It's true. Yeah. And even those automations, those posts that, a VA goes in and posts, or even you do yourself on a content calendar, that stuff can still be impactful. I think it just, the more heartfelt those things are, the better, even if they are pre-written. And B, when they're supplemented with those spontaneous off the cuff things, or, hopping onto live, or just anything to show that vulnerability, your personality, your beliefs, that makes them all the stronger. Because it is helpful to show up consistently. And sometimes it's just more than we can take, sometimes it's just more than we can handle.
Yeah. And I think just at the end of the day, it's looking at relationships. Are you posting to build relationships, or are you posting because you're desperate for money and need a quick sale? Or because someone told you that posting in Facebook groups was a way to make more money? And maybe one of the results of being really active in Facebook groups is that you can grow your business and make more money. But at the end of the day, any money that you make in your business can probably be traced back to a relationship you built, either through that intentional, I'm going to spend time having those coffee chats and those conversations, or through the way in which your automated content was written and established as a way to put yourself out there as an expert, but also as an expert who cares and who wants to help your audience member move forward.
Yeah. So let's move to email automations, because I think there's even more danger here of falling into the like mechanical side of things. And I think that that's a great fear that a lot of people have, and it actually holds them back from like creating funnels or creating automations. And so I think there's a little like myth debunking that can go on here, but also just some strategy around, how to like make something automated feel really personal and like relationship building which isn't a word.
It is now. Yeah. I think that's huge, right? Because people want to have this system, and you hear so much about funnels and how much they can do for your business once they're set up, and how you can create passive income streams and sell out your programs. And all of that is true, but it's only true if your funnel is building the relationship that allows your new subscriber to be like, I feel comfortable giving these people or this person my money because I believe that they're going to help me. I believe that their offer is going to help me get where I need to go. And so how do you do that in something that's sometimes completely automated and so behind the scenes in your business sometimes that it's easy to forget it's even there? And I think that's the first point right there is don't forget it's there. Set an appointment with yourself periodically, even if it's just once a quarter, to go in and check your funnels, check your automated emails, and make sure that they are still relevant and still hitting those pain points of your audience, still speaking to them in the way that you are presenting yourself more spontaneously to your audience so that your voice matches and so that it feels current, even if it is totally automated.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think just going back in, looking at the data and letting it speak for itself, but also like looking at the text, looking at like what's the process someone's going through. Does it feel warm? And two, like, so just like a little bit of our evolving strategy, like we're often known for our copywriting character quiz, and it's led into different funnels over time. And the most recent iteration of that has been a big, huge funnel that sold a lot of things. And basically our thought process behind that was, okay, someone's going to come in, they're going to want to learn their copywriting character, they're going to want to learn about their voice. And that's going to be the entry point for everybody, because we want to keep it simple, keep it streamlined, always be talking about that thing. And then a few emails in, we're going to give them a chance to like select from a list of, areas where they really could use some help in their messaging. And from there, we're going to give them this beautiful, customized, tailor-made experience where they like get funneled into something, a product that makes sense for them, that really helps them to show, hey, we're listening to you. So like, I feel like it was born out of like the best of intentions for being personable and personalized. But I think what happened is like, it just made it a little too big and hairy. And so Jesse created a new funnel, and it's super short and tiny. And it's just like has one opt-in, and it goes to like one paid product, and then goes to, I guess, another, right? Beyond that, like there's an upsell.
Yeah, which we trade out. Sometimes it's an upsell into another program, and sometimes it's an invitation to get on the phone with us, depending on what we need in our business at the time.
Right. And it's been a little crazy to see like the people hopping into that. And it's very streamlined. And then the other thing that was cool about that is because it wasn't like a huge funnel that they were in for 6 weeks or whatever. It was shorter. They were starting to get our just like regular newsletters much sooner. And so there was this excitement, among these people who were coming into this funnel, this like tiny funnel. And all of a sudden they were like, I remember getting an email that was like, I just got on your list, but I love your emails. And and so we kind of like, we gave them an opportunity to buy, we gave them an opportunity to sell, or like for us to sell in a way that like felt good and felt obviously like, you know, they want this thing because they just opted into something that's super related to it. And this is just the next level of it. But then like immediately, as fast as we could, we just got them to the heart and soul of like our more spontaneous, like just regular, hey, how's it going list emails. And that's been, I think, a bigger relationship builder for us than the old funnel, which was just, it was like, as I said, the best of intentions, but just got a little cumbersome. And it took them a while to get to the point where they could really get to know us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think short and sweet really, and this is different for every audience. So other audiences might require different types of funnels, but our audience, like they dig the short and sweet. They come to us for a specific reason. They want a specific opt-in. They want a problem solved. And once they have that problem solved, they're like, all right, I want to know what the next step is and get to know you guys in the process, which I think is the next point, which is when you are automating your emails, yeah, there's a structure to follow potentially, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have to sound personal. It doesn't mean you can necessarily, that you forego the personal stories in the background. And like, this is often the first way that people get to know you in a intimate, almost a client relationship sort of way. It's basically the first time that they're exchanging something in return for value. So they may have seen your social media posts, they may have been in your Facebook group, but now they are giving you something. They're giving you their email address in return for value. And that email address is a coveted thing because nobody likes to have a swamped inbox. So they're giving you their email address. It's important to, in return, give them the experience that hopefully is going to be beneficial to them and build that relationship. And part of that is sharing yourself, sharing your story and your journey and how it relates to whatever it is that they opted into.
Exactly. So that's why it's key for us. And when we work with our clients on their email sequences, like automations, pre-written, like let's look at like how as soon as possible, like, yeah, we can totally deliver the value and the answer to the question that they're coming to us for, but also share ourselves. So, you know, don't be afraid to talk about yourself in that first email. Even in like the PDF delivery or, you know, video delivery or whatever it is that your opt-in is about, go ahead and introduce yourself. Go ahead and tell a fun story. Use those early emails while you're warming them up for that first tripwire or whatever it is. Like, this is actually something that, a friend of ours, Michelle Evans, who's like a funnel genius, says, but she talks about how like, you know, it's like asking somebody on a date when you first meet them or whatever, you know, when you're like, buy from me straight away. And I don't think there's anything wrong with going ahead and like being confident in your ask and going ahead and pitching something. But like, how much more likely is someone going to be to buy from you when they know you a little better and when you're sharing of yourself and when you're like being open about that. And so it's just a matter of, again, like taking that time, putting on your calendar every quarter or whatever, and like going back and looking at your funnels and just seeing like, am I being real with these people? Yeah. And like, do I make them like want to date, you know, or do I make them want to run away?
Yeah. And I think, you know, when you get down to it, whatever service you are looking for or offer your audience is looking for, there are many people that can deliver. So Maria and I do copywriting. We copyright, you know, websites for clients. There are a lot of people out there who write websites for people. Tons, hundreds, thousands, probably millions. I don't know. There are a lot. But when people decide to work with us, they're not deciding to work with us because we write websites. They're deciding to work with us because they believe in something that we believe in, because they have followed us or been referred to us and had a conversation with us and said, these are the kind of people I want working on my website out of all of the other potential people that could work on my website. So when it comes to making that sale, it's not necessarily that what you do is different. It's how you do it and the way in which you approach it and build those relationships that is going to make the difference between your offer and someone else's offer that it seems on the surface to be almost identical.
So I think, you know, our take on all of this is no, automations aren't dead. No, Facebook groups aren't dead. No, like all these places where automation is, is making our lives easier. It doesn't mean we have to lose sales. That's not the trade-off that's necessary. But I think a lot of people, and this was sort of my fear for a while, is like, okay, well, that's great. I need to show up authentically. I need to build those relationships. Lordy, that sounds like a lot of time and effort. And so like, I think it's worth spending a little time on that too. And like maybe debunking that as well. And looking at like ways where it feels good and it feels fun. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm sitting down to write an email is I think of like a specific person on our list that I'm like, I really want this person to hear the message. And I just trust that, like, because that person is, representative probably of a lot of other people. They have a lot in common with other people on our list, because we're pretty clear on our audience, that it's going to speak to a lot of people. It's not going to speak to everyone, but like Jesse just wrote a super heartfelt email last week to our list about like when it's okay to like not be okay. And as a business owner, you don't always have to like put on the suit of armor, and like you can just take time away, and also you can be vulnerable. And like, Lord, the response to that email was amazing. Like people were emailing back, like, thank you, I needed to hear this. And like, people sending notes on Facebook and other people chiming in. And I think that that's an email that, yeah, it was written in the moment. It felt timely, but also like absolutely could be reused. It could be built into funnels. It could be built into all sorts of things. And like the difference was that like it was on her heart. She wrote it in the moment. She wrote it. Well, I don't know what was on your mind, but I imagine you were thinking of like specific people or like specific instances. You had a reason for writing that email. So like holding that top of mind is super powerful in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes because sometimes I think when we're writing a funnel, we think of it as just another item on the to-do list. And to an extent it is. I mean, it's something that if it's important to put this passive income machine in our business, like, okay, a funnel is a great way to do that. But when you actually sit down to write, and this is something that I think Marie and I have experienced a lot with our own personal writing within our business, but also within client work, like you just know when you're feeling it and you know when you're not feeling it. And so like if you're trying to write these emails that are going to be a part of a funnel and you are not feeling it, then that's a good sign that you need to step away and reapproach it later, or maybe switch tactics on that email. And there are, tons of different strategies out there about like what email number 1 should be and what email number 2 should be. We have one of our own that we follow and give out as a free opt-in. But those things are always just guidelines. And as an entrepreneur, you have the freedom to be creative and to find what works for you and what feels good for you. And so if you feel like writing a specific thing in a specific way, and that's like what is emotionally engaging to you, it's going to be what emotionally engaging to your audience, because they can feel that. There is some sort of like, I don't know, weird voodoo magic that happens when you are writing and like you are feeling it and you send that out and other people respond. It's happened so many times in my life where like the things that I write in the moment as I'm feeling them get so much more response than the things that I force myself to write because I feel like I have to.
And I think that's the key, is emotion, which has not always been easy for us. It still isn't always easy for us. I mean, both of us are people who oftentimes kind of like push those emotions back or step away. And we've been really turning that story around. And we found that the more that we allow for emotional connection, which typically happens because we're being vulnerable, which can be scary, which is another emotion driver. So it's actually kind of beneficial, that more people connect and more people really do respond. And they're like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that. Or like, wow, that's been on my mind too. And again, like don't discard those or don't discount those wallflowers. So like just because just because you hear crickets in response to your email list doesn't mean it's not on somebody's heart and mind all day. And eventually that person is going to turn into a really powerful relationship for you. Like, you don't know. So just like put it out there, like allow for that emotional connection, because even if you're experiencing something that they haven't experienced, like maybe, your parent is like in failing health and like it's been really weighing on you and it's like affecting your business and you just want to talk about it. Like even if your client has never experienced the death of a parent, or the grief process or anything like that, they're going to hear that connection. They're going to feel that like grief and the yearning and like all of that stuff that's coming up. And that's where the connection is, because, we don't all have to have the same life story or the same experiences, but the range of emotion, it's a lot easier to connect. And we've had those moments where like we felt something similar and we can like have that like common thread of humanity between us. And that's like key. It's key.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also worth noting that like writing emails or writing any content, Facebook posts, whatever, that are emotionally infused does not necessarily mean that you have to bear every like piece of your heart and soul, because that's terrifying. And there are things that you can and maybe should keep private just because of the boundaries that you've set in your own life. And that's totally fine. There are other ways to infuse emotion. So, for example, when we first created our copywriting character quiz, the very first iteration of that funnel was another short, simple, sweet, to the point funnel. And one of the emails within that was, I wrote it essentially when I was really annoyed with something in our industry, which we've talked about before, which is the ideal client avatar. And I was annoyed with it. I was annoyed with hearing so many people tell me that they felt paralyzed by it. And so when I wrote that email, I wrote it when I was annoyed, and I got up on my soapbox and I talked about it. And that annoyance with something that started off with really great intentions and then had been taken on by entrepreneurs and turned into this big hurdle that was paralyzing, that annoyance bled through into the email. And that email got so many responses from people who were like, oh my God, I am so annoyed by that too. Or I've been so paralyzed by this too. Thank you for shedding light on it. So it's not always like, oh, I'm going through this traumatic life experience and I want to share it, especially if it's in a funnel, because hopefully you're not going through a traumatic life experience every day, all day, because you don't know when these people are getting these emails. But, whenever you can infuse some sort of emotion.
Well, that's the other key too, is right. Like my example was like really heartrending, and yours was, also like
annoyed.
Right. It's like maybe an emotion we don't want to feel all the time. But just recently I was interviewed by Lindsay Landry, who she was saying like, I really can feel the excitement and passion for what you do reflected in your voice. Like you love stories, you love talking about authenticity and language and vulnerability and all of that. And like, I can feel your excitement. So that can be a great way too, just to like, just get excited about what you do. Like, I mean, or not get excited because you already are excited. Just like tap into it or remember it. Like before you write that email or before you write that Facebook post, like jump up and down, like physically, like do something or like journal or like talk to yourself out loud, like a, crazy person or whatever you need to do to like, just remember like why you're doing this thing, like why you love it. So it doesn't have to be a negative, like, or I don't know if, like it doesn't have to be on that side of the sort of the spectrum of like uncomfortable feelings to connect with people. It can totally be like exciting and positive and uplifting as well.
As a kind of side note, I have this thing that I keep here on my dry erase board, and Lisa Carpenter recommended that I keep it here, and it's an emotion wheel. And it's actually really, it was originally here so that I could like look at it and be like, how do I feel today? And it starts with really general emotions on the inside. It says sad, mad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful. And then you choose one. And then each time you go out, they get a little more specific. So if you follow the joyful thread, you can from there pick, out of the different joyful emotions, I feel excited. And out of the excited emotions, I feel daring or fascinating. And so like before I write content, it's really kind of cool to look at this, and you can just Google it. It's an emotion wheel. To look at this and be like, okay, when I'm writing this email, I want to write it from a amused voice or a playful voice. Or if it's something I'm annoyed with, I want to write it from a skeptical voice or a frustrated voice. And like to use something like this to pinpoint the emotion that I'm feeling and give a word to it often allows me to embody it more as I'm writing it.
Oh, that's super good. I need one now.
I'll send you it.
But yeah, I think that's key, right? Is like not like I want to pigeonhole myself and like shove myself into this box of feeling daring. Like if I'm super not feeling daring, like it's more like, yeah, naming the emotion I am feeling about this, and then
like identify it.
And then just let it permeate, you know?
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe that's just like because I'm weird that I need to put names to things. But I feel like we as human beings have such a range of emotion that sometimes it's really hard to figure out what you feel. And one of the ways that I do that when I'm processing my emotions is by finding the name for the emotion that I'm feeling, because then I can use that name as sort of a channel for the words that I write around it.
I love that. I'm going to use that.
Emotion hacks for the unemotional.
Not unemotional.
No, for the people who pretend to be unemotional but really are rather emotional and just resisting that fact.
Yeah, ask us how we know about that one.
So we've talked about a lot today. Moving right along.
Yes, we've gotten a little bit real with you guys as well. So hopefully this has been helpful. It's, our take on automation. Like, it's just because something is automated, like that's just a tool for you. Like you can still be yourself, and in fact ought to be yourself always, and even though something is going out to the masses at maybe, a prescribed time or something like that, it doesn't mean that it can't be heartfelt, and it doesn't mean that it can't show your personality. So just remembering that, like, as things are shifting in this space, and there's more competition, and there's sort of more things that are falling by the wayside, and there's more things that are feeling more and more passé. Like, you as a person are never going to be passé, you're always going to be intriguing. You're always going to be interesting to people. And, that's your secret weapon is yourself. So don't neglect it. But it doesn't mean that you have to like always be up at midnight the night before, like writing the thing that's about to go out.
Right. Absolutely. So we would love to hear your take on this. So we will put all of the ways to connect with us in the show notes, and just let us know what your thoughts are around automation, and specifically around automation and around Facebook groups and email funnels, and how you can best connect to your audience and what you may already be doing to connect with your audience and create those relationships.
Thanks so much.